So before we dive over into the next video where we're going to be walking through the process of compositing still photographs with video to make it look like you've shot this unbelievable video underground where you've lit everything up and there's this little cave we're walking through. Before we go into that, I need to talk a little bit about how I went about shooting the video and lighting up that caver so that you kind of have some background on what I needed to do to get to that point. So I had a video clip to composite with my still image. So it's important that in order to do this technique, you are going to need to make sure that your camera shoots both stills and video. You can't have two separate cameras because they have to be perfectly registered. The video and the still has to be perfectly aligned in order for this technique to work. So you need that feature first of all. Second is you're going to want to make sure that when you're shooting the video that you check to see what those video settings are, because those are going to be important to use when you dive over into Motion or Final Cut or whatever software you use to do this composite. So make note of the frame rate. Is it 24 frames a second? Is it 29 frames per second? 29.97? Is it 30 frames per second? Is it 1080 or were you shooting 720? So write down some of those settings because when you set up your project, you're going to need to know that. The last thing that you're going to need to know is what do you light? I mean, in order to do really nice video underground, like I'm not talking about compositing stills and video, just to do nice video underground in large chambers is virtually impossible for a couple of reasons. One is that caves are generally pretty remote. I mean, you don't typically drive right up to the cave. There are some that you can do that, but most of them, they're pretty remote. Second is that in order to light for video, you need a very, very bright, continuous light source. And to continually output light, you can't do it with batteries. I mean, well, you could with batteries, but it's only going to last like 10 minutes or whatever, not very long. So in order to light continuously for a long time, you're going to need some sort of AC electrical source where you can plug into a generator or something. And, typically you're not going to carry that much gear around with you to these remote locations. And third, so you're going to need some powerful lights, and those lights for video are not cheap. So we're not talking a couple $100. We're talking thousands of dollars. So what do? So you're not going to be able to light up with a single video light, the entire passage and have multiple lights all over the place because it's just way too expensive. You have to, port all this gear around. It's just not going to happen. So what I do is whenever I'm shooting video that I know I'm going to composite with a still, is I look at the shot that I'm trying to create and I think, what is moving and what is not. The only thing that I need video of is the object that's moving. Everything else I can do a still of and then later composite it. So in the shot that you're going to see here in a minute, the only thing that's lit up is the caver going through the passage. And what I use to light that up, I have a couple of lights that I play with. One of these is this MCP13 LED Power 900 lumen flashlight. Now, this is just a cheap Chinese light that a friend of mine told me about. So I went out and purchased it, and it's a really bright light. The problem that I have with it is that, it puts out a lot of light, 900 lumens, but it only puts out that much light for like 30 minutes and then it's dead. And it starts fading after, 20 minutes or so. So I don't really have a lot of time on this sucker. The other thing too is that it puts out a spotlight. So it's a very narrow beam. So in order for it to work, I have to be standing, well, if I'm lighting up a person, I need to be standing fairly far away in order to light that up. But, it works-ish if I really bump up the ISO. So that's one thing I can do, and then just kind of follow the caver and make sure that they're in that beam of light through the cave. So that's an option. The other thing you can do is if you're kind of a handyman, is build your own. So I went out and, looked at some tutorials online, bought some LEDs, and then hooked it to a heat sink that I got off of a computer, and then got some stuff at the electric store. And this works okay. It's not the best thing ever, but hey, it's not thousands and thousands of dollars, and it's small and portable and lightweight. So there's lots of options. You can just hack your own light, find something bright, and then figure out what's moving and shine the light on that caver, let them walk through. Don't worry that everything else is black, because that will be lit up later with this compositing technique we're going to go through. So anyway, that's sort of what I do. Set up the shot, they walk through, we do the video, I then do the still, making absolutely sure that nobody bumps the camera. It's locked down super tight so that it's registered perfectly. So I think really that's all there is to it. And you can play with different directions and move around and play with the light to see which will work the best for your video. But I think that's all you need to know. So that said, let's go ahead and jump over into this lesson and explore how we composite stills in video.